The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Good morning.
Good morning and Happy New Year, Chip. How are you
today? Welcome to the last show of 2014.
Yep, show number 88.
And we have a recap of the very, at least it ended excitingly, but we did have some news throughout the year. So let's take this on, CJ.
Well, you know, I just went over some of the big news stories for 2014. For Fall River. And, you know, they always say, let's start our year off with a bang. Well, we did that in January because a gasoline tanker crashed on Route 24 right over here by the exit at BCC. And it tied up traffic all along 24 and shut down the rotary on-ramp to Route 24. And then, of course, right after that, literally right after that, we had a great announcement from the then mayor, Will Flanagan, who said, hey, we got Foxwoods coming. We got a definite deal. How many times did we hear that, Chip?
Well, let's look at the timeline. It was in January, which means he was starting a new term, and every time he started a new term, he screwed up, and then he had to promise the casino or another, and we'll see later, something else to try to deflect the attention away from what he was doing.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And then later on in the month of January, we see that the Fall River Police Department had to answer the Facebook challenge, for the lack of a better expression. They arrested a 17-year-old boy for posting pics of various girls in the Durfee and the various high schools in the Fall River area in a state of undress, which is illegal. And he thought he was just getting back to all those girls that wouldn't put out, I guess. I don't know.
Well, you know, Facebook can be a really good medium for relaying information, but when misused, it's basically the Jerry Springer show on the web or whatever, you know. So, you know, the only difference is, at least on the Jerry Springer show, once in a while you can get your hands on the people that are being that are calling your names. So they let them throw a few shots at each other. But unfortunately, Facebook, everybody's a killer on Facebook. All they have to do is punch the keyboard. So,
well,
you know,
as you say, Chip, it's kind of really interesting because they're keyboard warriors, and it just makes for a great show every time you're looking at it.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, that's the whole problem, I think, with you know, we're going to get into societal things later, but I mean, we'll do that on another show. We could do an entire show on what's wrong with, you know, when this society gets to the point where people can be bullied on Facebook. I don't know how you could be, maybe because, you know, when I grew up, people actually had fights in the street and in the schoolyard, and, you know, and the fact is that I don't know how anybody can be bullied on a computer screen. But, you know, like I say, it says something about the coping mechanisms of what we're creating for a society, and I think that these you know, there's a lot of things that anything can be abused. There's always a good and bad side to virtually everything. And technology, as we've seen, not only Facebook, but the ability for them to spy on us as a society. There are pros and cons to everything. Nothing's all good and nothing's all bad.
Oh, this is true, Chip, and we know that. But moving right along the 2014 timeline, we kind of skipped February and March, because in April we had a letter from then again Mayor Flanagan telling the president to have the FDA reformulate a new painkiller or cease its manufacture because it's too addictive. A letter from the mayor of Drug Central, Heroin Alley, whatever you want to call it, saying, please don't make another one.
Yeah, another in his totally incomprehensible actions that make absolutely no sense. It's like, is that the way we cure problems? Just write the president and say, okay, I want you to stop murders too. So, it's just the entire premise of the letter is ludicrous. So off we go into June.
And in June, we get to face the dynamic dum-dums. Flanagan and Fiola, both Fiolas, not one, but two Fiolas say, we want the Olympics in Fall River. Really? Where would you put an Olympic stadium? Where would you put the people that would come in? How would you get them here? No foresight, nothing whatsoever, Chip. That was like the biggest laugh going for that period of time. But
well, I think we've got three now. He's got the tripartite now. He's got the casino, the Olympics, and Amazon. But then we also had in June Aaron Hernandez arrested for the alleged murder of Odin Lloyd, which was big news, especially in Fall River, since we always have the dubious distinction of having guilt by association, even though this didn't happen anywhere near Fall River. Where's the trial being held? So when everybody looks at this murder trial, they say, oh, Fall River. And no, not again. Every time we see Fall River, it's always in that connotation.
The Big Dan's rape trial. Where did that happen? New Bedford. The rape happened in New Bedford, but Fall River got the trial.
That's it. It's really amazing that it's funny. It's almost like the stars are aligned against us because, like I said, here's something that happened, nowhere near Fall River, yet now every time we talk about Aaron Hernandez, we're talking about Fall River.
Yeah, well, and remember, going along with that Hernandez things, at one point in time during 2014, the mayor and, again, the dynamic dum-dums sent a letter out to Bob Kraft to bring the revolutions to Fall River. Where are you going to put a soccer stadium? Come on. You got to give him credit for grasping at every straw possible, but... you got to have a little bit of, forethought in this.
Yeah, maybe they shouldn't have knocked down the one they actually had because many, many years ago, they did have a soccer stadium because the Ponta Delgadas played and, soccer was a big thing in Fall River. And, we did have that. But again, here we go with the, pie in the sky mentality. Let's dream big dreams and then stick our head in the sand so we don't have to face the harsh reality of what we're looking at.
Well, and now we get into August, and you remember what August was, Chip, very clearly. In August, what kicked off? The recall kicked off. Oh my God, those hateful people.
Yeah, and it kicked off, and that was the beginning of something that was probably the news story of the year, and we'll get to that toward the end. We'll wrap that up. But
I just think it was very interesting, though, because right about the time that the recall kicked off, it was announced that Fall River has the top 3 tourist attractions, which should be drawing people to Fall River. And what are those 3 tourist attractions? The Lizzie Borden House, okay, Battleship Cove, and the Veterans War Memorial down at Bicentennial Park where you steal the flag.
Well,
that's what we have as a claim to fame for Fall River. Really? What happened to our carousel that was guaranteed to bring 1 million visitors a year to the city? Hey, I'm doing the Flanagan thing. Look at me. I'm doing the Flanagan thing. Oh no.
Well, I don't know who came up with these were the premier tourist sites in our area, but they should be subjected to a urine test. Because, if the last time I checked, we're like a half an hour from Cape Cod. We're 20 minutes from Providence and Newport, Rhode Island, where they have they have America's Cup. They have, they have the 12-mile drive. The old Great Gatsby, and it's like we have so many tourist attractions that within driving range, and so to say something like the the Lizzie Borden house, and again, what do we get our notoriety for? Somebody that, Lizzie Borden had an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks, and when she saw what she'd done, she gave her father 41. So it's like, well, let's go down and look where the Fall Riverites murdered people. And so, but I mean, yeah, it is a tourist attraction. I don't think they've made enough of it, but the problem is it can't be the only singular thing in here. And we really have to be realistic and realize that tourist attractions
you
are
know what
something
the really
that,
sad part about it, though, is Lizzie Borden has now become a very popular icon. Sad to say it's an icon, but I mean, her legend, her history has become an icon. They've made several movies. They're now working on another, I guess, either miniseries or television series about this issue. And when you talk to them and you ask them why can't they film in Fall River, why can't they do any of that, and they say, there's nothing left. There's nothing there to actually make it work so that we could film in Fall River, because we've done that. We've taken absolutely no ownership of the history of Fall River. Not that I'm big on keeping some of the old icons that they're fighting to keep every day, but the thing is that you got to stop it. You can't have it all. And the Preservation Society, while I applaud their work, they've obviously missed the boat on a lot of things, because Fall River is not getting any type of notoriety. And even in Government Center for many years, they've always tried to play down the Lizzie Borden issue, and when they should have, and that would have really brought in a lot of tourists.
Yeah, you're right, CJ, and it's unfortunate that the city does, they sometimes call us, among other things, negative, but I mean, besides being, I don't know, communists and anti-Semites and among
Nazis.
among other things. But the reality is that I personally care about the history of the city, and I've seen a lot of its history that could have been positive, not really kept. As a matter of fact, they totally ignored it. I mean, you talk about Lizzie Borden, you talk about most of the things associated with Lizzie Borden have disappeared. But how about, we talked about soccer, amazingly enough. They wanted to bring the revolution down. A lot of people who live in Fall River don't realize we had the best soccer team in the United States at one time. And I think they even won a world amateur title. The Ponta Delgada team, which was made up of mostly Fall River and Tiverton, Rhode Island people, and was the best amateur team in the world for more than, not just once, but for numerous years. Also, a Fall River native played international level soccer when people didn't even know. There wasn't any American players, basically, and Billy Gonzalez is his name. The fact is that we had people who played on the Olympic soccer team years ago. Yet have we, and of course with our history, with our cultural history of being a predominantly Portuguese city, you would feel that since that's the premier game in Portugal, that there would be some attempt to save some of that history. But they haven't, and they don't promote that. Soccer's a fairly, it's gaining in popularity every year in the United States. I mean, granted, it's the most popular sport on the planet outside the United States. But it's gaining a lot of popularity in the United States. And the fact is that a lot of youth soccer leagues all over the country. And what would, people say, why can't bring in Fall River? Why don't we have something, a museum, or have something about the Ponta Club and something about our heritage? And these are the things that really irritate me when I read stuff like this and they say, these are the only things we have.
Chip, I agree, and it's really sad. But as we move along into September, the recall petitions were filed with over 5,500 signatures. Although they keep saying 3,000 and change, that's what was certified. 5,500 signatures were gathered. And I don't care whether they got them at the Walmart, the Stop and Shop, the Shaw's. there was a group of people that went out there and they worked their butts off on getting it done. And, you know, kudos to them. But let's move a little bit into October. The final Miss Senior Sweetheart pageant was held on October 27th. And, you know, that's a sad thing. You know, they had many, many years of service with that pageant, and it became international. And a couple of documentaries were done on it, and a couple of different movies. And I'm sure that Lenny Kaplan, you know, really took it right in the chest when he had to let it go finally. But it is what it is, and you know, that's where we are. And I've just ticked off our PhD person who's watching our show right now because she hates that phrase. It is what it is. But also for October, a big boo-boo was made. The Dynamic Dum-Dums, Flanagan and Ken Fiola, you'll probably get a call from that side now asking you to rein me in, announces the amazing Amazon deal that they intend to come to build a 1 million square foot distribution center in Fall River in violation of their non-disclosure agreement. Well, you know, the mayor was up for a recall, and, you know, as you've said before, anytime he's in trouble, he has these glorious projects that always come to fruition. He never misses the boat. But remember, it's all my fault because I had the audacity to call Amazon and speak to the president and the vice president of the company. Who do I think I am? I ask questions.
Well, they had a non-disclosure agreement which they didn't abide by. They only abide by non-disclosure agreements when they don't want to disclose information that proves that they screwed up. But otherwise, they disclose it, because even our state delegation was not happy with the fact that they leaked this. But of course, there was an ulterior motive. The ulterior motive was that the mayor was facing a recall, a very real possibility, and a very real possibility of him disappearing as mayor. So again, he conjured up something to make the people divert their attention. And the previous 3 times it was the casino, now it was Amazon. That was the new savior of Fall River. Amazon was coming, and you know, everything, and of course no specifics on anything, but it was coming, you know, just like the other great promises, the checks in the mail and a few others that we all know.
Yeah, but I think the biggest slap in the face to the people of Fall River was by the Incredible Nine, the nitwitted 9, who all met with the mayor and or Kenny Fiola and were told in some way or another, or it was intimated, that it's not really a done deal yet, but don't ask any questions. So in the amazing 2-minute, 11-second city council meeting, they approved a TIF, giving away the everything and the kitchen sink and the baby diaper pail to Amazon with no questions asked and no questions being allowed or statements being allowed from the citizens. Talk about a slap in the face to the voters of Fall River right in the middle of a recall, and it absolutely reeks of communism. It reeks of fascism. It reeks of socialism. I mean, they took all 3 of them and rolled them up into one. I mean, and then to be told by city councilors, you know what? We had to do it. If we ask the question, we're against jobs. If we don't ask questions, it's against jobs. No matter what we did, we were pushed against the wall, because that's how the city council in Fall River likes to be. Push me against the wall and make me take the vote that you need, because otherwise, I'm just going to keep asking questions. Well, you know what? That's not the way to govern. And they've proven over and over again that they cannot do what's right, and they can't do for the public. And I got into arguments with a couple of councilors, and I have no qualms about my statement. I still stand by it, that you cannot just vote for something because it's going to make you politically look good. Okay? That just says you don't have a backbone. Because if you had asked a question, I would have stood up with the answers. Because the ones that Kenny Fiola wouldn't give you, I had. And I had the source. So I would have been more than happy to give you those answers. But nobody wanted to ask the question. We can't do it because if we say, well, what about this? Oh, you're all about not getting jobs, so get out of here. You're not going to get reelected. It's amazing what self-preservation does to our elected representatives in Fall River.
Well, we did, for our viewers out there, if, in case you don't remember, because we did 88 shows, which is, pretty good. We did cover a lot of this in depth. The meeting, we're not gonna just, go over this meeting. But the fact is that we had our positions, and the 2-minute and 11-second meeting, as I said then quickly, was, it shouldn't have been done. I mean, I don't care, asking valid questions to confirm the validity of something that's being presented that can affect the future of the people of Fall River, is not negative, it's not delaying a process, it's doing your job. And I think that, they did, the city council should never again allow themselves to be backed into a corner like this and use that as an excuse. Well, we don't want to ask questions and delay the process. Well, if you delay the process 2 hours while you get some answers, or if you don't get those answers, maybe the people who were so elated over Amazon coming wouldn't have been, getting ready to call the Samaritan hotline when they found out that it wasn't coming, because they were already counting the money they would get from their Amazon paycheck, and that's just wrong. I mean, the city, when the city proposes something, and hopefully with one of our last stories, things will change on the way Fall River does business. And with that, we'll move over to, where are we?
Well, I think
court
right now,
rules.
Yeah, the court rules that the election goes forward, and the court also ruled that Will Flanagan goes to the top of the ballot. And that slides us right into December for the election, December 16th, where I won with 70% of the votes. Oh no, they fired me with 70% of the votes. Historic election, historic election, and absolutely wonderful. And nobody has stopped speaking about it yet, but I'm going to move forward a little bit because we're actually down to 7 minutes here. But the Amazon hiccup happened right after that recall. Isn't karma wonderful? The Amazon hiccup. Amazon removes itself. MOBD didn't do it. The Mass Office of Business Development didn't. Ken Fiola didn't. Amazon removed themselves from any consideration for tax incentives as they have to review their deal with Massachusetts and especially Fall River. Amazing.
Yeah, well, what a surprise, huh? What a surprise. Wow. Yeah, but, I've got to go back, and I know we've got a few minutes left, and I have to say, the November, the court ruled that the election would go forward. And I can't say it enough. I've said it a few times. I wrote it, I think, on a post at one time, but can't say it enough that the credit goes to the man in the arena, not to the critic. And the fact is, the credit about the recall, you cannot emphasize enough how much Les Rich did. The fact is, everybody talked about, that, we attempted the recall 2 years before, and it didn't go anywhere. Yeah, you're right, it didn't go anywhere for the same reason that this one wouldn't have gone anywhere had not we found Les Rich. Let me tell you, we had meetings where people were going to charge us $750 for a 1 or 2 hour consultation. The mayor spent $32,000 on legal fees. There's no way we could have raised that amount of money, because as vocal and as seemingly irrepressible the public's opinion was, we couldn't raise that type of money. It was unrealistic. We had to get an attorney that was willing to literally put hundreds of hours of his own time in and work for virtually nothing. What Les Rich charged the recall committee didn't even pay for the ink that he used to create his exhibits. He believed in our cause. He put in hours and hours and hours, and he went up against a law firm, not a lawyer, a firm that had legal assistants and paralegals and other lawyers to help frame all their exhibits, do all the legal research. And what he did was absolutely incredible. He basically gave up his life for the recall. A man who works as an attorney, and he couldn't do a heck of a lot of other work. So when we begin to get bursitis from patting ourselves on the back, everybody better remember that with all the hard work, and I'm not diminishing the hard work of the people who got the signatures, the credit for this recall becoming a reality goes to Les Rich. Because without him, we could not have gone forward. There's no way, and there's no way that we could have, I mean, it was a miracle we found him, so I guess the stars were lined up, and I'm gonna give an award out now. The People's Award of Spindle City Straight Talk for the year 2014 goes to the people of Fall River who got out and voted because they won the recall.
You know,
we gave them the opportunity, but they won the recall. And they deserve the credit, just like Les.
You can't do any better than that, and we're gonna close a little early because I'm going to let Mayor Sutter give out the final message. I took about 3 minutes of his inaugural out where he said to stop the nastiness. I don't know how hard that's going to be, but he said it very clearly. And I want to say very clearly to everybody, I hope you all have a very happy new year. And please continue to watch Spindle City Straight Talk next year.
See you all next year.
It wants to give me a technical problem. What do you know?
There are two fundamental differences between the position I was in 8 years ago and the position I'm in today. The first is policy experience. Let me find my place again here. I haven't spent 23 years in city government. I didn't work after law school, as some do, as the special assistant to the mayor. I didn't work after that as a city administrator, and I never served on the school committee or the city council. So there will be a learning curve for me on the issues and the mechanics of city government. And I believe the people in the great city of Fall River understand that. And I promise them it will be a rapid learning curve, as fast as I can do it. But the other fundamental difference is, and this for the city of Fall River is a positive one, and that is the experience I have now had, as opposed to 8 years ago, in leadership. Leadership is where I've had a sizable learning curve over the last 8 years. And now I can apply the lessons of leadership over the past 8 years to the challenges I face starting today. The people of Fall River voted for change. Approximately 70%, over 2/3 of the 16,000 who voted 2 weeks ago, voted for change. And my interpretation of the results of December the 16th is that 70% of the people of Fall River, including those 12 individuals who were appropriately selected by the Herald News as Newsmakers of the Year, they voted not just for change in administrations, but for change in the approach of city government and the direction of city government. Change in the approach and change in the direction. And I assert to you now that our approach, I'm looking out at some of the people that were instrumental in that movement, our approach is going to reflect the change you voted for. We will be open. We will be straightforward. We will be clear about what we're trying to do, and we will be consistent in trying to bring people together behind our ideas. And we will be determined to set a new tone to the city's political debate, a tone that is more respectful, more civil, more polite, less nasty, and less bitter. If we are going to convince new business to come to Fall River, or present businesses to expand in Fall River, we have to appear more unified when we agree and more dignified when we respectfully disagree. More unified when we agree and more dignified when we respectively disagree, and I will do my level best every single day to set that tone.